Hello and welcome to another video here on Turtle Leaf Studios channel. Today we're going to be learning how to mix a bass guitar for this kind of case study that I've been working on for a while now. This is a song called 10 Miles Away by the band The Upsiders. I'm the guitarist in the band, but I'm also the one mixing it, so I'm both client and mix engineer for this. Just for full disclosure there. So we're going to mix this bass guitar today because at the moment it's quite big in the mix. It's quite a big tone, and I'm just going to get to this first verse, I think. And if you've already seen the drum video where I mixed the drums here, then you know all the process for that. If you haven't, feel free to go and watch that first, but here is all the stuff I've done for that. So far the drums are mixed and so are the vocals actually, but I've muted them for now. That's good because I would love to just focus on the bass guitar right now. And it's a big tone at the moment. It's a 5-string Dingwall bass, which Joe Taylor, the bass player in the Upsiders, fantastic player, really great, solid player. I don't think I've ever heard him make a mistake actually, which is very unusual. I think he told me once that this is a bass guitar that kind of a bass guitar that like a metal band would use or something like that. It's got fan frets and all that sort of stuff. So if you're into your bass guitars, you probably know what all of that stuff means. But it's quite a big kind of tone at the moment. It's taken up a lot of the space in the mix. So if I just play this verse, and you'll see what I mean by playing it here. So yeah, hopefully you know what I mean from that example there, that kind of, and when I muted it halfway through and then unmuted it again, that it's occupying an area of the mix that's just going to make everything sound quite unclear, should we say. No fault of Joe, I should say. Just we DI'd his bass straight into my interface, and that's what's came out, and they're quite warm interfaces that I'm using. So here we go then. So we're going to start with some cuts, and I'm going to use the Pro Q4 because I love it. There we go. And we're going to start with some cuts, and if you've seen the other videos by now, you probably know I'm going to start with the low mids. They're just my favourite thing to cut usually. They usually make everything a lot more clear sounding, really. So we're going to start with some low mids. So I think it's going to be somewhere in this kind of 200s to 400 area. Somewhere around here is what it's going to be. We're going to let's split the difference and start with 300. And I'm just going to probably use a mixture of the visualizer but also my ears. I'm just going to listen as well to where I think there might be some muffling going on. Hopefully you heard that ping out just there, that kind of very kind of nasally sound like that just kind of pinged out straight away there. So we're going to take that out there. Get rid of that, I say. I'm going to use a bit of a wider cue than this though, just generally to kind of take out the area either side as well. I'm gonna go for like a probably like a 1.1, I think. Yeah, something like that. There we go. 0.1, just maybe slightly more. I'm doing this purely visually, which is probably not what you're meant to do, but give that a go. So here's without. So it's not a bad sound, to be fair. It's pretty good, lovely warm tone, but it's just we've got to carve it so that it fits with everything else. So here is it. I'll leave it on bypass, then put it on halfway through. There you go. So there we go. So it's just going to thin out the sound a little bit, but leaving it a bit more of a hollow tone, but also that will just sort of sit a bit better with the bass drum and the snare drum, and the relationship between those two as well. So we're going to do that. It's not happening all the time, and I think that's probably maybe a little bit much. So what we'll probably do is just go back slightly on this, probably actually quite a bit. And what I might do instead, just a little bit more, we're going to make this probably a little bit more subtle than I had it before. And I'm going to make this a dynamic, which you can do here on the Fab Filter stuff. And what that means is it's just going to drop the EQ on this. It's going to compress that specific frequency to that bandwidth by this much. So that's the frequency cut out a little bit. This is it getting compressed when we need it to be a bit more active. So that means that EQ band, that particular frequency, is going to get EQ'd more depending on the severity of the part. So let's just have a listen to that now. Fantastic stuff. Yeah, sounds great. Right, time for a quick break to swig my tea. Fantastic. I'm drinking a ginger tea if you're interested. So there we go. So that is the low mid sorted in my books. I probably will end up altering all of this before the final sort of mastering bit, but for now I'm pretty happy with that. And the next thing I'm going to look at is kind of this bass here, and I think possibly it's going to be one of these that we're going to drop down. And let's try about 100s and see how that sounds for now. So there we go. So Ian, what are you doing? Why are you taking bass out of a bass guitar? Well, I'm taking a very small sliver out here of a shelf, and it's very minute amount, but it's about making a balance between the tone of the instrument, the kind of top end sort of finger sounds, and balancing those with the drum kit. Now I'm listening in solo, that's a little bit dangerous. It's not as bad as everyone makes it out to be, but let's just double check how that sounds with the drums and everything in at the moment. So you can probably tell there with the fader up a little bit that we've gone from a quite big sounding bass guitar to now something that's kind of fitting in with the rest of the ensemble a little bit more. With just those two cuts there, it's just sort of a little bit more balanced sounding, and you'll notice that a lot of the muffle is now out of that as well. Which is great. Okay, next thing I'm going to look at sort of cutting is the best way I can describe it. It's probably not 100% accurate, but I'm going to have a look at taking out maybe some of the sound of the string hitting the frets. So this bass guitar's got frets, and there's a sound that occurs with these big thick wired strings, you know, these big thick strings hitting the frets. It kind of bothers me a little bit, and let's see if I can boost it first of all and see if you can determine that. And I apologize if once I've done this you will never be able to hear bass guitar the same way again, and I'm sorry bass guitarists for something that kind of bothers me a little bit, but here we go. There you go, that's it. It's that sound, that frequency of a bass guitar with frets. As soon as you take the frets out the bass guitar, you don't really have that problem. But that is the one that we've got there. I'm just going to ever so slightly... No, I'm not. I'm going to leave it. And we're going to take out about... I'm going to guess about 3 dB is probably going to be enough. Give or take. I'm just going to give about 3 dB of that. There we go, fantastic. And we're just going to broaden that Q out a little bit to maybe somewhere around the 11, I think. Would probably be good. There we go, yeah, that's kind of about the shape we're going for. I'm doing this by shape, which I know probably is quite alarming for some, but I've also kind of done it before and I kind of know it's going to be that sort of broadness, but we're always going to double check it as well. So let's just listen to that. We'll press play and have a listen to that. Yeah, so there we go. So that is taking out some of that kind of string rattle noise. I reckon there's probably one a little bit higher as well when I was cycling through. So let's try just cycling through a bit. go. It sounds like a dodgy spring reverb, isn't it? When you take it when you take it out of isolation with everything else. So we're going to just widen that as well. That Q there to about, I think. How much are we going to do that one? I reckon probably about quite a narrow one in comparison, but there we go. Go for something like. Getting very specific now with my EQ curves. I love EQ, you've probably noticed. So yeah, so that is all the cuts we're going to do, I think, with the bass guitar. We've got rid of these ones, which is the rattle of the strings hitting the frets. We've taken out some of this low mids here, so that it sits a little bit better with the drums in particular. And we've made that dynamic, so it's going to compress that specific frequency a little bit more than otherwise. And then we've done an ever so tiny amount of sliver of a low cut, just so that we've got that balance a little bit more between bass drum, floor tom when we get to that B section, and the bass guitar itself as well. So that is the cuts. And I'm not going to do the boosts on this EQ because I think it's probably getting to that time to compress it. And if you boost into a compressor, it can sound really cool, but what you're kind of doing in a sense is you're taking a frequency and you're kind of squashing it back by compressing it. By boosting it into a compressor, you're then squashing it, and it can actually make the compressor work harder. Okay, I'm going to go to my favourite compressor. We've had my favourite EQ. We're going to go to the Novatron by Cush Audio. I love this thing. This thing is brilliant. And we're going to go to mix here. The mix is the lower setting. And I think what we are going to do though is, even though I've just said we're not going to boost a specific frequency into the compressor to then make the compressor work harder, we are going to probably boost the overall input of what's going into the compressor, I think, just to make the compressor do that faux analogy thing that I love so much. So let's give that a go. So there we go, we got that going on. Okay, and let's just stick the compression at about 50% for now. Oh, it's 50.4. Let's see if we can get it bang on 50. Oh, 50.1. Come on, can we just type in here? Yes, we can. Wicked. There we go. And let's give that a go. Let's have a play with this attack and this release. One of the things I love about this this compressor is you've just got 3 big dials. There's no big fancy graphs to just get lost in for hours and hours, and then you listen back to it the next day and it sounds awful. You've just got these 3 big dials, turn them till you think it sounds good, and that's what I'm going to do now. So let's have a play with this attack. A CPU issue there. So yeah, just played with those dials. Also moved this sidechainy high pass one here, which is just going to take off the compression from a certain frequency. So we're not just compressing all of those sub harmonics in the bass guitar there. Let me drop that back a little bit. There we go. So yeah, so we're not compressing anything kind of below 32. They're just hardly anything, is it? So there we go, and I'm going to add a little bit of saturation and just see how that sounds. Right, I'm going to leave the EQ quite flat because we're going to boost some frequencies afterwards with this, and I reckon now that we've kind of effectively turned it up by increasing the input into the compressor. I think we should probably break this back down a bit just to avoid any kind of peaking going on, maybe a little bit more. So yeah, there we go, and that I think is going to sound great. So have a quick check with everything in context. I'm going to drop the fader back down to where I had it, because I knew that kind of was a good setting. It was about there, 6.8, let's go with that. Alright then. Here's start without, and then we'll put it in. So yeah, there we go. So we've got a much deeper tone now on the bass guitar. A lot of that muffling has gone. But the thing is some of the notes are getting a little bit lost in the song now. And that is where we probably need to start bringing in the boost. So I'm going to do a Pro Q4 again. There we go. Fantastic. Okay, so I'm thinking what we need to do, even though we've taken around 1k out with on the taking out on the cutting EQ that we did before the compressor, we did take out a couple of things around 1k, but I reckon there's probably something in the 1k that we could actually bring back in, but it's a different frequency to what we had before. So let's just turn that off for now, and we'll have a little listen and see if we can find that there. So yeah, there we go, a bit of extra 1k and things are just sounding a little bit more solidified, although that amount of Q that we've got there, that bandwidth, is actually bringing some of that fret buzz back in. So I'm just gonna probably take that Q down a little bit by, I reckon, about this much probably. Yeah, I reckon that's probably about right, maybe slightly broader. A little bit too much, there we go, that's about right. So there we go. So yeah, that's what we've got going on there. That one. Okay. And I know we took, funnily enough, a little sliver out here before. I believe it was about 184, I think it was, all the way up here. We took a bit of a one of these out to about 184, I think it was 185 maybe, but going up to about here, that's what we did. We're now actually going to do the opposite. We're going to do a 111. I reckon. It's going to go, no, let's go a little bit high, let's go 120. No, that's going to be too high. Let's try 100 and we'll see how that sounds. I'm going to turn it off first of all. So yeah, there we go. So we have also just put a bit of bass back in, but the funny thing is this is additive EQ, so we're doing it after the compressor. So this isn't getting compressed. So, but why do a cut before? Well, it was balancing it out before going into the compressor, balancing out with the drums and the EQ. This is kind of more of a coloration that we're doing now. So we're sort of reshaping the tone again after the fact. So that in mind, I'm also going to do a shelf. I think I'm hearing a sort of shelfy thing. So we're going to change this over to this. And I think it's going to be quite a steep shelf if I can get it. Come on. Why is that not working? I think I just wanted to do more like a 10. There we go. Oh, come on. Why isn't this working? What am I doing wrong? There we go. 10D. Okay, we'll just go with 12. And we're going to kind of do a little sub one, I think. Yeah, going to do a little sub one, and I think we're going to go about here. Is what we're going to do. Make sure the gain's at 0 there, and we're going to probably do a different band though. I was nearly pushing the gain up there, and I was thinking, do I want to push the gain up there, or do I just want to change the Q? That was the thought process going there, and I think what I want to do is actually just change the Q. So we're going to go for like a sort of 2 points on the Q there. Let's try 2.2, see how that looks. Does that look how I think it's going to sound? Strange concept, I know, but it seems to work. Hopefully you agree. So yeah, there we go. We'll go for that. So the point of that is that we are saying we want pretty much nothing after sort of this 34 Hertz. We want pretty much nothing of the bass there, but we're going to boost it before so it sounds a little bit more natural. So that's what we're doing there. And I think that's everything I want to boost at the moment. If anything, I might want to actually just alter this Q to bring this down a little bit. And I think that's going to sound good. And we'll just try that all together now. We're going to take everything off, put it all back on one at a time, and double check that we are happy with all of that. So here is the bass in isolation first. So I think there's maybe slightly too much gain on this 1K area when we solo it, but let's have a little double check with that unsoloed, and we're just going to try that additive EQ off and then put it on. I'm pretty happy with that. I might make some changes in the final mix, but I am pretty happy with that as it is at the moment. So we have gone from a quite big, fat sounding bass that sounds great when you solo it, but when you put it in the context of the rest of the mix, it doesn't quite sit with everything so well, and we want to take out some frequencies and carve those out so that it fits with the drums, it fits with some of the other mid-range instruments going on with too. That's going to be another video. Got a very interesting idea for those to try. And then we're also going to compress it, because it's a bass, of course you're going to compress it. And it just adds a little bit more life to the sound of it. And then we have added some additive coloration, a bit of an EQ curve after the fact, just to make it again sound a little bit more solid in its tone now that we've taken some stuff out and compressed it. And as a result, our bass guitar is a little bit more deeper sounding, sits quite well with that bass drum. I think everything sounds a little bit deeper and lower tone wise. Yeah, and I'm pretty happy with that. That sounds great. So feel free to leave any comments below, and I'll do my best to answer them. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them, but that is what I'm going for. So we're cutting out the muffly stuff. I often find that muffly stuff's the low mids. We're then compressing it with my favourite compressor. Just play with 3 dials until you're happy with it. And then we've added a little bit of coloration with EQ afterwards just to solidify it. Alright then, that is me over and out. The next video is probably going to be looking at the keys here. This is a piano sound, a stereo piano sound. I DI'd my keyboard into the thing. We've also got the melodica and the accordion coming up. And how do we mix those in this mix? Well, that is for another video, but yeah, I hope you enjoyed this, and hopefully see you in the next video. Thanks ever so much. Alright then, bye bye.